Well, hello and welcome to this session of meeting our board members. It's with great privilege and honor to welcome Michael Harper, a new member of the Buxton International Festival Board. We're delighted to have him join our group of trustees. Michael is a singer, he's a countertenor, he is a teacher, he is the principal study tutor at the School of Vocal Studies at the Royal Northern College of Music. He's also a director, and he's an all-around fabulous guy. So, Michael, welcome, and thank you so much for the time to talk to us. I'd be so interested, I know our friends would be super interested in how you got into the business of opera singing and your decision to be a countertenor.
Well, it's kind of a long story how I got into singing because it started when I was very young, really. Um, yes, I can remember singing in church when I was probably 3, 4, 5 years old, just something that we did in our community. And when I was in the fourth grade, my teacher, Helen Palmer Howard, heard me singing in class and she put me up in front of all of the fourth and fifth graders, two assembly classes, and said, "You're going to sing." And I was terrified because I was really a very shy child. And but I got up on the stage and I started singing. I think it was "You'll Never Walk Alone," and never looked back. And she was my mentor all the way through my first year of graduate school until she died sadly, of cancer. But she left a strong legacy in me of teaching and supporting young people, and the gift of my own singing.
And how did you
How
find
I
your
became a
way
count.
to being a countertenor? That's very interesting for me.
Well, I used to sing in a gospel choir when I was in high school. My brother had sung, and it was community choir. We had our own weekly show on television, local show, and it was very good. Reverend Billy Lee was our choir director, and he um, would sometimes formulate male quartets, and so we would sing sort of the old-fashioned gospel music, and there would always have to be the highest part, the sort of tenorino part, or the really what was an alto part. And we had a countertenor singing with us, and he used to sing backup with Earth, Wind, and Fire and groups like that. And so I had that in my ear. And so when I had to sing that high part, it was easy for me. My brother and I used to sing along with this gospel singer who sang in an operatic way. Her name was Sarah Jordan Powell, and we would see who could sing the highest notes. So we'd go up the scale with her and see who could sing the highest notes, which was quite interesting. So as a child, I had those examples, but I remember being in undergraduate school and my teacher, Joan Sutherland, was on. He was playing her at the end of my lesson, just for a bit of fun. And she did a cadenza, and I sort of did it along with her. And he said, "Oh, that was very good." And then I never thought any more of it. And then in graduate school, Malcolm Fraser decided to do A Midsummer Night's Dream. The problem was he didn't have an oberon. We didn't have any operatic countertenors in the school. It was all a very new thing. This was 1993, I believe. And so we had no operatic, it was just a really new thing. We'd had Russell Oberlin in the States and a few other countertenors who'd done early music. And so one of my coaches, Donald Lowy, heard me singing, again, just playing around at the end of one of my coaches. I was a baritone, so um, I didn't care about being a countertenor really. And she said, "Oh, does Malcolm know you can do that?" And I said, "Well, why should he know that I can do this? I'm a baritone." And she says, "Oh, I think he would be very interested because you are, they're really looking for someone to sing Oberon in Midsummer Night's Dream." And I thought, whatever, I don't really care. I'm a baritone. So I went home in the summer and I learned the aria and I came back and auditioned for Malcolm. And he was just thrilled. He was over the moon that he'd found his Oberon. And I was really a bit concerned about this because I still didn't want to be a countertenor. I thought, I'm a baritone. That's, my direction. And why am I doing this? So, and then I started doing the role and we started rehearsing. And the thing that really turned me around is they all of a sudden started treating me like a soprano. They treated me with grace and, and they didn't want me to get sick. And, they were really worried about me. Baritones don't get treated like this.
Oh,
So I
geez,
thought, oh,
exactly.
this is pretty
Baritons
good.
are generally the bad guys.
That's right. So it was really good. And Malcolm was really, really supportive and tried to encourage me in every way to pursue this. And I was really quite skeptical of the whole process because it didn't seem a way that you could actually have a career, not in the States anyway.
Mm,
And um, and there wasn't very much information around about how to teach countertenors.
mm.
So all of my teachers were sort of trying to figure it out as they went. And
And how fascinating
yeah,
that
so it was interesting.
Malcolm Fraser played such a huge role in establishing the Buxton Festival, because it was through his passion and drive and vision that we are here today talking, and that it's 40 years later. So, what was he like as an individual, as somebody who was so passionate about opera?
Yes. Well, Malcolm, well, when you have teachers, um, teachers in a conservatoire situation can be both wonderful and annoying because your teachers are always requiring something of you. And conservatoire is a pressure cooker sort of situation. But what I discovered about Malcolm is that he was a really, really lovely and sweet man who really cared about the students. You would often see him walking down the hall and didn't necessarily have direct um, connection with them except to say hello, unless you were in classes. So I did my first opera with him was as Mel in the Not Garden, and it was a chamber version of the Not Garden. It was the American premiere at Cincinnati at the College Conservatory of Music, and Michael Tippett came to see it. And so that was my trial by fire with Malcolm, my first opera in graduate school.
And now, of course,
And
and
it was a really
how did it go out? How did it end? How was the
well. It got really great reviews. And what I was going to say about Malcolm is that I remember one particular thing he said to me in a rehearsal. He says, "I want you to be more vulnerable." Well, saying that to someone in their 20s, I mean, what do people in their 20s know about being vulnerable? It's just not. And so I thought, well, whatever that means. So Malcolm was very kind of loose with his direction. But what I thought about him is that he allowed us to play a lot in finding the direction of the opera. And he always produced beautiful pictures on the stage, always produced beautiful pictures on the stage, and dramatically compelling pieces. So, however he directed and however weird it might have been to me as a young singer, what I noticed is what I noticed is that the result was always fantastic.
Oh, wonderful, Michael. And of course, now you are a teacher yourself. You're the principal study tutor at the School of Vocal Studies. And I was interested in your pedagogical approach to the young singer that comes. And I noticed something that you said on your website, which intrigued me, was that in order to free the body, in order to have a natural voice, one has to free the body, free the breath, and free the voice. How do you do that behind those closed doors when you are sitting down with the
Well, every student, every human being comes with their own story, their own set of circumstance in their life. And I could sit there and just give them the exercises to do. And there is some of that. There is a lot of that. They just have to go away and do their work. They have to do the exercises. But I observe a person when they walk in the room, and I see what they're holding in their body and what's free. And my belief is that the body and the mind have to be free in order for them to emotionally and physically commit to what we call opera, because it takes a lot of energy and a lot of focus. And I think that many of them do a lot of extra things that they don't have to do before they even start. So it's getting those extra things out of the way. And I always say to them, look, I'm not teaching you anything you don't know already. Because the surprising thing is that every time a person gets to that place that we think is genius, they somehow know it. You don't have to tell them. The light comes into their eyes, and they may not know it consciously, but the light comes into their eyes, and they actually recognize it somewhere subconsciously if they can't consciously. So what I'm doing as a teacher is trying to remove all of the junk to get to them, and I remind them that, we've heard Leon Team Pie sing it. We've heard Joan Sutherland sing it. We've heard Simon Espy sing it. We've heard, you know, Kiri Takanawa sing it. We've heard those great singers sing it, and we like them because they did it their way. And what we're interested in is how you do it. Because if you can do it authentically, that's the miracle. That's the genius.
Very good. And of course,
And that's what I'm looking for.
and then growing up in Virginia, in the United States of America, you had a huge access to a rich tradition of gospel and spiritual music. And I grew up in South Africa, and I had that tradition here as well. So that's something we have in common. And I know that it's impacted a lot on my life and my work. And I wondered, for yourself as a singer and as a teacher, what influences did that have on you as you developed as a young artist and as you moved into teaching?
Mm. Do you know, my grandfather was born in 1900, and he came originally from Paducah, Kentucky, and probably through Nashville, Tennessee, on his way to Virginia. My grandmother was from Virginia, and she grew up. My mother said she played the violin, and that they grew up with an organ in the house. And my mother always sang. We would sit around the table and listen to gospel music or listen to Aretha or something. And my brother and my mother and I particularly would sit around and sing and harmonize. So music was everywhere. And when I became a countertenor, the voice that I hear is my mother's beautiful, sort of clear, lyric soprano voice. It wasn't big, but it was just very clear and beautiful. And she was never really very confident in it that she would take a solo in the choir, for instance. She was very shy about it, but it was a very beautiful voice. And then I had the training of the choir, the gospel choir, which is a long, long tradition of both, and it was all around the gospel quartets, which mimicked the Fifth Jubilee Singers. In South Africa, you had the Virginia Jubilee Singers,
Exactly.
which,
That's
yes,
right. Yes.
just yesterday I was talking to a South African composer and cellist called Thokozani Mhlab, Mhlambi.
That's right.
Mhlambi.
Columbia.
That's right. That's right. And he was telling me about the Virginia Jubilee Singers, and he went to Hampton Institute. So I had all of these rich institutions around me. Virginia State College then was just up the hill from Petersburg, and I had all of these experts in the tradition of African American music and classical music sitting, just a few miles from where I lived in
Mm.
this university. So I was very, very fortunate. And Petersburg was a very important hub for that. And Virginia was a very important hub for that information because the first people who were enslaved came to Virginia. And they just did a big celebration of that, the 1619 celebration this year, last year. So that tradition of the African sort of melded with the European
Mm.
sort of started in that area, really.
Mm.
So I have that rich tradition, and it's interesting that that tradition then influenced the singing in South Africa as well. I found out yesterday, which is very surprising for me. And I was saying to Thokozani yesterday, I said the South Africans say they want to come to Europe so they can learn how to sing, and I tell them all the time. I said, y'all don't need to learn how to sing. You know how to sing better than most people I know in the world. Maybe you need to come here for the opportunities. But
That is so true.
there's
I
some
mean,
great
we are blessed.
great singing from
We are
South
blessed
Africa,
with great
and I might almost concede that they're nearly as good as African American singers.
very very good. Well, maybe we should arm wrestle that point between you and me. Let's have an arm
No,
wrestle.
no, I would say some of the most extraordinary opera singers in the world right now are coming out of South Africa.
Well,
Um,
you and I should have a cup of tea, or perhaps more than stronger than that, and talk about Porgy and Bess, because that's been a huge part of my life, and I'm
yeah,
sure that you know that piece extremely well.
yes, yes,
The launching pad for so many careers that
yes,
we've done, and I've done so many productions of it. So I think that's one of the great works actually that has helped Cape Town
it
Opera
is.
to really take off Porgy and Bess. And there is such an interesting gospel tradition that is deep in that piece, you know. So that's really interesting. Of course,
Yes,
it has its
yes,
problems, as we both know, in terms of where it came and how it came.
yes, yes,
But we're now diverting away
yes.
from you, Michael, which is really what we're here to do. So. Uh,
So, yeah,
I really hope that you have a great tenure on our board. The festival is so important to so many different people, and I know that it'll only be enhanced by your experience and your passion for opera and the wisdom that you will bring. So, thank you so much for giving us some of your time. And I thought, as a treat for our listeners. Michael Harper has a CD out, Life, Love, and Spirit, and you can catch some of the snippets on his website. And I thought it might be quite nice if we played out just listening to his beautiful voice. So, Michael, thank you so much for joining us, and looking forward to meeting you in the flesh.
thank you. I'm delighted to be on board. Thank you.